What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to rank the openings of all 6 Scream movies. Now, we just did the killer rankings, and I gotta thank you guys. Not only was it a successful video, people liked it, but also it was kind of lacking controversy. I think a lot of people actually kind of agreed with me, or at least understood where I was coming from. So I greatly thank you for that. I do think this is going to be controversial, though, because I have some differing opinions on the openings of this film. Now, I will say, I've written this down because I'm like 500 years old. I use pen and paper, and I've changed the rankings of some of them twice already. This is actually like my 3rd time recording this, so I'm kind of all over the place. You could probably coin flip a couple of these, but there are some definitive ones. I feel very strongly about some, mainly at the top, let's say. Okay, so let's go through it. Number 6, I'm going to say, is Scream 3. Oh, well, speaking of Scream 3, as we are now bringing this into it, I just let the cat out of the bag. None of these I do think are bad. I think, honestly, all of them are pretty good at worst, and then, like, elite / like, best thing ever at the best. So me putting this at 6 and me having this at the lowest end of it, right, doesn't mean it's a bad opening. It just means compared to the others, the sample size that we're using, it's not as good. I've never loved it. Cotton I like as a character. I think Cotton's really cool. I'd have to like put myself back, and you can't, right? Like back in 96 going through 2000, because like I like Cotton, but because I watched them like immediately, I don't feel like you build the same kind of relationship. For example, if Danny were to die in the opening of Scream 7, which I think is possible, and they do a Cotton-like thing, I feel like I'd be stronger. I'd feel stronger for that than I did for Cotton. Mainly because I kind of lived through this. We've covered Danny. I went to see the movie in theaters. I would see 7 in theaters, right? It's a different feel. So that is a big part of it. I will say it lacks a lot of what makes the other ones, I think, kind of special. There's really no, I'd say, standout Ghostface lines. The going from a car to his condo or whatever it is, and it's a very nice looking house, townhome, whatever it is. I like it. But at the same time, I don't know, it doesn't feel all that powerful. I guess where it gets its biggest strength is what it does, right? It kills a character that is that big. You think of one, like the Drew Barrymore thing is big, but you don't know her, right? She's not really a character beyond those first 10, 15 minutes because she's not in the movie. Cotton, we've kind of grown with, right? He's been in these films, and he was a significant part of 2. So going into 3, like you don't know what they're going to use him for 3, right? At least that's how I see it now. So that's its biggest strength, but it just doesn't do anything else, I would say, all that powerful. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Scream 4. So I've been very vocal about this before. I don't remember. I think I've done this video before, but I'm not 100% sure. I think this would have been dead last. I kind of go back and forth between 4 and 3. So if you want to flip a coin and say, well, Alex is not really strong on either of them, you can do that. I think the reason I would say 4 is higher, the Ghostface lines. I think Roger, and it's part of a film throughout all of 4, Roger just like takes it up to like a 15 out of 10. Not necessarily in quality. I think he's extremely good. But as we've talked about actually before, this is like the most different Ghostface voice that I think we get, right? It's that age where like his voice had changed from the last time we heard it. So you listen to 1 through 3, and then you listen to 4, and even now you listen to 5 and 6. 4 stands out. 4 he's just a different age. It's just a different thing. But also the tone is so brutal. You talk about the most brutal Ghostface killer yet that they, talk about for Scream 6. In terms of the voice alone, he definitely gets that in Scream 4. Now, the reason why I'm spending so much time talking about that part of it is that's the strength. I actually don't think there's many other strengths. I don't like the stab going into a stab. The celebrity cameos, like, they're fine. Like, thinking that Kristen Bell or Lucy Hale, thinking that they're in a Scream movie is kind of cool. Like, you gotta be honest, right? Thinking about it like back then. It's like, oh yeah, Kristen Bell was in a Scream film, and even some of the other ones, right? It's not just those 2. But I just didn't need it. And there's just so many fake outs, I guess, right? Like 2 sets of fake outs that it's just not powerful, right? So for me, again, I really hate that. I hate jumping from stab movie to then real life. I guess I do like that it's a little bit different. Like each one is a little bit different. The final one, right, with the real girls, they're a little bit more drawn out, a little bit more of what you would imagine a Scream opening, quote unquote, would be. But I've just never been able to get over the stab opening. At number 4, I'm going to say Scream 2. I went back and forth with this one, okay? I admire the difference between this and any other. So I would like to say first that a reason why this kind of rises up the, the rankings is because of originality. Again, you got to kind of put yourself, or at least I try to put myself back into that. And you even think about the openings of Scream 1, well, actually all of them, right? Besides, I guess, 6. 6 is very original as well, and we'll get there. But when you think of Scream 1, phone call at a house. Scream 5's the same. Scream 4 is actually kind of the same, right? So Scream 3 is a little bit different, that it doesn't start in a house. But Scream 2, being in a movie theater, and just this idea that they're immediately leaning into the stab, right? The fictional universe inside the fictional universe. The originality, I think, is fantastic. Now, I'm not a big, Jada Pinkett Smith fan, especially more recent time. But beyond, let's not get into that kind of drama or controversy. Just overall, I've never been in love with, I guess, the setup of the characters. I don't really care all that much. And it doesn't hold the weight as a Casey Becker does. However, again, the originality and taking out one in the bathroom and then going and, they take her out, let's say, to keep it a little PG. They take her out in broad, not daylight, but in a theater with everybody around and nobody notices, right? Until she gets up on stage. So just I think the wow factor, the shock factor, and leaning into the stab universe, I think is extremely clever. They'll never really be able to do that again, right? So it's so original because how do you come up with that after you do Scream 1's opening, right? Very different, very kind of different opening. But also, how could you ever do that again? And the answer is you probably don't. You probably never try that again. So you got to give it credit for that. And number 3, I'm going to say Scream 5. And the reason I'm doing this, I actually really like this opening. So this is where I want to make it very definitively known. This is where it gets extremely hard, I think, because I love this opening. I guess I'm holding it back because it's Scream 1, right? Now, I guess, in the movie, the meta-ness of it, the fact that they are trying to recreate, well, I mean, not really, but in a sense, right? The movie is pitched basically as Scream 1 again, and they're leaning into that trope that a lot of things are going to be repeated. So they're aware of it. So I would like to give them bonus credit, I suppose, for that, right? And I think Jenna did an incredible job. It's repetitive of we've seen that kind of setup before. Now, the fact that she didn't die, that's a big one, right? And it's way more brutal, I'd say, getting stabbed through the hand. Tara as a character definitely goes through it in really both of the films that she's in. So I love it. I really love it. It felt extremely good when the trailer of 5 came out and the first thing you hear is the phone, right? Classic. It doesn't really make sense, who has a house phone anymore, but even sitting in the movies, right? You go in, and I can still remember, it was only a year ago, you go in, and this is your first Scream movie in a long time. It was my first Scream movie, new Scream film in theaters, and then just hearing, that phone call. And Roger, again, I think he deserves a ton of credit because of that cat and mouse, right? Kind of starting as this support group guy, and then he molds into, do you want to play a game, Tara? It's incredible. So I love it. But because of originality, I'm going to hold it back just a bit. Okay, so number 2 on the list is going to be Scream 6. That could be a shocker. I want to, I'm aware of both sides. I think that's kind of what makes my channel a little bit different, right? Although I'm very confident in myself and I have my opinions, I'm aware of what people say and I'm totally fine with it. You can have your own opinion. I think a lot of people don't like 6's opening, okay? I've seen a lot of that. I think a lot of people do love it, and I would like to put myself in that group. Here's the thing I can't get away from, right? We've been asking, and I remember doing live stream / video, we're in the thick of it. We're the weeds of the Scream community. I know that there's been discussions online from fans about a killer, a ghost face killer who kills somebody, unmasks themselves, and then they die from another ghost face killer. We've 100% had that discussion before the trailer, before it probably filmed. I know we've had those discussions. They literally did it. Now, it's not perfect, at least in, subjective opinion, right? It's not perfect. It's not, I guess, exactly what I would do. But that's where I stand. That's the side I stand on, where it's something so different, so nuts, to be flat out honest with you, and just something that the fans have been coming up with for years now, more, in the thick of things since Scream 5 came out. Recently, there's been that discussion. So what do? Well, they get, I'd say, pretty good actors. Tony Revolori, I only knew him as Flash in Spider-Man, but I think he did fantastic. Then you get Samara Weaving, a Scream queen, and she the screams that she's able to do are absolutely incredible, not just in the movie, but just in general. And you have a beginning it's not like amazing. I'd say like the back and forth, like the catfish kind of thing. It's whatever. But I think just the idea that he lures her into an alley and, he has that kind of line where you teach this stuff and yet you're still here. I love that. And you could, when you hear the modulator turn on, it's like, oh my, here we go. Please be seated for Scream 6. And that's exactly what we were. And then, she gets killed off. And then you don't have the title scene. You have just the blood splash, and then he unveils himself. It's so different. And it's so different on top of, I think the quality is there. I think the conversation that those two had was solid enough. And then I think the idea that, Jason and, his partner Greg were literally out to kill Sam and Tara. Like their plan, whether it was at that night at the frat party or whether it was going to be some other time, that was their plan, was literally to kill them. Now, they wouldn't have stood a chance, but it was so cool. And then he gets the phone call, a little game of hot and cold, or hot or cold, right? The game. And again, Roger, just take it away. Take it away. It's so amazing. And then even, who gives an F about movies? Like, it's so different. It's so great. The more I talk about it, I feel better. Okay, you can come at me saying this doesn't deserve to be here, but the more I say it, the more I feel, yeah, this deserves it. So I got to stick with myself on this one. But that leads us, of course, to number one. Really was never a competition. So when I made this list, looking down, kind of cheating here, when I made this list, Scream 1, I immediately wrote number 1 next to. Okay, so that really was always number 1. The rest of them fought for 2 through 6. It's so good. I mean, like, you can watch it. I honestly believe you can watch it over and over and over again. It never really gets old because you can always kind of pick apart something else. It's obviously got its huge standout moments, but the game of cat and mouse, again, you got to remember, like, the first time seeing it, which I really try to, like, I think that actually makes it more special. You watch it now and you say, wow, that's still elite. Like, it's still so good. And then you say, well, there was really nothing, like, Scream didn't exist before that moment. You know what I mean? So you think about back then and you say, well, it's amazing now. And I've seen 6 of these. And I've seen the TV shows that also have openings, right? So you've seen all of that and it still stands out. Well, now imagine seeing it when it first came out and there was really nothing like that. I mean, I can't speak from that experience because it came out, I was half a year old at the time that movie released, but I can imagine. I can, like, picture it in my head. So it's just so good. Just every little bit of it, timing, how long it is overall. The fact that you're willing to do that, by the way, have these openings be so long, which takes away, by the way, from, like, the movie, like the other characters. And it doesn't always have that much to do, like, it does, but it doesn't influence too much the rest of the film. So to dedicate so much time on that opening, or any of the openings, is pretty gutsy, and I think it pays off. So this one was not a tough call whatsoever. This deserves number 1. The rest of them, I guess, could fight over it. Let me know your rankings in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know also, I've seen some suggestions of other rankings you want me to do. So I got some in my mind, but if you want more, like, obscure rankings, we can really pick apart specific things, fire them off in the comments. I'll definitely get to them. We have some time, I suppose, until Scream 7 comes out, so let's do a bunch of these. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.